The verdict that changed everything. The message crackled through every frequency in the galaxy, transmitted in 47 different languages. Captain Elena Vasquez sat in the command center of Rust Haven, an abandoned mining station drifting in the darkness between stars, and listened to the words that would change everything. By unanimous decree of the Galactic Council, the species known as Homo sapiens is hereby classified as Class X prohibited. All human presence within Council territories is subject to immediate termination. This decision is final and irreversible. Elena's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, floating in the low gravity as brown liquid scattered across the metal floor. Around her, the dozen other humans who called this forgotten place home sat in stunned silence. No trial, no debate, no chance to defend themselves. Just a death sentence wrapped in diplomatic language. The transmission continued with cold efficiency. The Council's spokesperson, a tall Zephyrian with crystalline features, explained that humans had been deemed fundamentally incompatible with galactic civilization. They cited aggression, unpredictability, and a dangerous tendency toward independent thought. What they didn't mention was the real reason, the one Elena was beginning to piece together. 3 months ago, Elena had been Commander Vasquez of the Earth Defense Force. She had ships, crew, a purpose. Then came the Plague Wars, the systematic destruction of human colonies, and finally the burning of Earth itself. The official story was that humans had brought it on themselves, that their reckless expansion had triggered an ancient automated defense system. But Elena knew better. She had been there when her science officer decoded the alien signals. She had seen the proof that the plague wasn't ancient at all, but a weapon deployed by someone with access to Council technology, someone who wanted humanity gone and had the power to make it happen. Now, floating in this graveyard of a station, with nothing but scrap metal and fading hope, Elena realized the truth had died with Earth, or so the Council thought. "Captain," whispered Tommy Reeves, the youngest member of their group. At 19, he had never seen Earth, never walked under a real sun. His parents had died in the first wave of attacks, leaving him to survive in the shadows of the galaxy. What do we do now? Elena looked around at her people. There was Dr. Sarah Kim, a xenobiologist who had been studying alien cultures when the attacks began. Next to her sat Marcus Webb, an engineer who could make a broken hyperdrive sing. In the corner, old Pete Jackson cleaned his rifle with the same methodical care he had shown for 30 years as a colonial marine. These weren't the dregs of humanity. These were survivors, fighters, people who had lost everything and kept going anyway. And if Elena's suspicions were correct, they weren't alone. "Tommy," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart, "fire up the long-range scanner. I want to know who else is listening." For the next 6 hours, they sent out coded signals into the void. Not the old military channels, which were certainly being monitored, but the underground frequencies used by smugglers, pirates, and others who lived in the margins of galactic society. The responses that came back made Elena's pulse quicken. A mining crew in the asteroid belt, a group of human researchers hiding in a derelict space station, former soldiers scattered across a dozen systems, each thinking they were the last of their kind. By Elena's count, there were at least 3,000 humans still alive, maybe more. The Council had made a critical error. They had assumed that by destroying Earth and the major colonies, they had broken humanity's back. They didn't understand that humans had been spreading through the galaxy for generations, putting down roots in places so remote that even the Council's vast bureaucracy had forgotten about them. "We're not extinct," Elena said, studying the data streaming across her screens. "We're just invisible. And that gives us an advantage they don't expect." Dr. Kim looked up from her console. "What kind of advantage?" Elena smiled for the first time in months. "The kind that comes from being declared legally dead. They're not looking for us anymore. As far as the galaxy knows, we don't exist. That means we can move freely, gather information, build strength. They've given us the perfect cover for a resistance." The plan that emerged over the following days was ambitious and dangerous. Alina proposed creating what she called the Ghost Network, a hidden organization of human survivors working to uncover the truth about their species' destruction and eventually to strike back at those responsible. The first step was communication. Marcus Webb worked around the clock to modify their transmitters, creating a quantum-encrypted network that could carry messages across the galaxy without detection. Each node in the network would be a small group of humans, no more than 20 people, operating independently but sharing intelligence and resources. Dr. Kim took charge of intelligence gathering. Her background in xenobiology gave her unique insights into alien psychology and social structures. She began analyzing Council communications, looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything that might explain why humanity had been targeted. Pete Jackson, despite his age, volunteered to handle recruitment and training. His decades of military experience would be invaluable in turning scattered civilians into effective fighters. More importantly, his calm presence and steady leadership gave people hope when everything seemed lost. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after the Council's announcement. Dr. Kim burst into the command center, her face flushed with excitement and fury. "I found it," she said, pulling up a series of intercepted transmissions on the main screen. "The smoking gun. Alina, they didn't just fabricate the evidence against us. They'd been planning this for decades." The documents told a chilling story. 50 years ago, human explorers had discovered something in the ruins of an ancient civilization, something that terrified certain members of the Council. The details were encrypted beyond even Kim's ability to decode, but the implications were clear. Humanity possessed some capability, some potential, that threatened the existing order of galactic civilization. Rather than study this capability or find a way to work with humans, the Council's inner circle had chosen elimination. The plague wars, the destruction of Earth, even the current extinction order, all of it had been orchestrated to remove what they saw as an existential threat. "They're afraid of us," Alina said, the pieces finally clicking into place. "Not because we're violent or unpredictable, but because we represent something they can't control." The revelation changed everything. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice, truth, and the right of humanity to exist in a galaxy that had tried to erase them from history. Alina's first target was a Council supply convoy traveling through the Nexus sector. Intelligence from the Ghost Network indicated it was carrying medical supplies to a research facility where alien scientists were studying samples of human DNA, trying to understand what made their species so dangerous. The attack came at the convoy's most vulnerable moment, as it passed through an asteroid field that limited sensor range and maneuverability. Alina's team emerged from hiding among the asteroids, their ships disguised as common cargo haulers, until the moment they opened fire. The convoy's escorts were caught completely off guard. They had been expecting pirates or smugglers, not a coordinated military assault by a species they believed to be extinct. Within minutes, 2 escort ships were disabled, and the supply vessels were under Alina's control. But Alina didn't want cargo. She wanted a message to reach the Council, one that would shake their confidence and let them know that humanity was far from defeated. As her teams boarded the Lid supply ship, she activated an open broadcast on all Council frequencies. "This is Captain Alina Vasquez of the Human Resistance," she said, her voice carrying across the galaxy to every Council world, every military base, every government facility. "You declared us extinct, but we're still here. You tried to erase us from history, but we remember, and now we're coming for the truth." The transmission lasted only 30 seconds before Council jammers cut it off, but it was enough. Across the galaxy, alien news networks picked up the story. Human resistance fighters, thought to be nothing more than desperate terrorists, had just pulled off a sophisticated military operation and announced their existence to the entire galaxy. The reaction was immediate and telling. The Council didn't dismiss the attack or downplay its significance. Instead, they declared a state of emergency and began mobilizing their fleets. Their response revealed just how much they feared the possibility of organized human resistance. But for Elena and her people, the fear in the Council's reaction was proof that they were on the right path. They had drawn first blood in a war that would determine not just the survival of humanity, but the future of freedom in the galaxy. As she watched the Council ships scrambling to respond to reports of human activity, Elena felt something she hadn't experienced since Earth's fall. Hope. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and officially didn't exist. But they were human, and humans had never been very good at staying dead when someone wanted them gone. The Ghost Network was growing. Every day brought new contacts, new allies, new possibilities. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, other survivors were receiving Elena's message and preparing to join the fight. The Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. The Awakening Storm. 3 months after Elena Vasquez's broadcast shook the galaxy, the Ghost Network had evolved from a desperate collection of survivors into something the Galactic Council was beginning to fear. Hidden bases operated in asteroid fields and forgotten corners of space. Encrypted communications linked human cells across dozens of systems. Most importantly, the Resistance had found something the Council never expected: hope. Dr. Marcus Chen pressed his face against the viewport of the salvaged research vessel Silent Echo, watching as Jake Morrison worked in the vacuum outside. The engineer they called Wrench moved with practiced efficiency, his magnetic boots clanking against the hull of an ancient derelict they had discovered drifting in unexplored space. Incredible, Chen muttered into his comm. Jake, these markings are definitely pre-Council. This ship is older than any recorded civilization. Morrison's voice crackled back through the radio. Doc, you might want to get out here. I think I found something that'll blow your mind. Chen suited up quickly and joined Morrison on the hull of the massive vessel. It was clearly alien in design, but unlike anything in the Council databases. The metal seemed to shift and flow under their lights, and strange geometric patterns covered every surface. Here, Morrison said, leading Chen to what appeared to be an airlock. Watch this. Morrison placed his gloved hand on a panel beside the entry. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the entire section began to glow with soft blue light. The airlock arised open smoothly, as if it had been waiting for them. Jake, how did you know to do that? Morrison shrugged, though the gesture was barely visible in his bulky suit. I didn't know. It just felt right, like the ship was calling to me. Inside the derelict, Chen's instruments went wild. The air was breathable, somehow maintained by systems that should have failed millennia ago. More strange still, the ship's corridors were perfectly sized for human proportions, too perfectly to be coincidence. The control room they discovered defied all logic. Crystalline displays showed star charts that included systems unknown to the Council. Power flowed through conduits that seemed to be made of living metal. And at the center of it all, a command chair that could have been designed specifically for a human operator. This is impossible, Chen whispered, but even as he spoke, Morrison was approaching the chair with the same confident purposefulness he had shown at the airlock. Maybe not impossible, Morrison said. Maybe just forgotten. When Morrison settled into the command chair, the entire ship came alive. Displays brightened, systems hummed to life, and a three-dimensional star map materialized in the air before them. But it wasn't just any star map. It showed the current positions of every human survivor in the galaxy, marked with pulsing green dots. Chen's hand shook as he activated his communicator. Elena, you need to get here now. We found something that changes everything. Captain Vasquez arrived at the derelict 12 hours later, bringing with her Dr. Kim and a small team of their best people. What they found left them speechless. The ancient ship, which Chen had dubbed the Ancestral, appeared to be some kind of monitoring station, designed to track and communicate with humans scattered across the galaxy. But the most shocking discovery came when Dr. Kim began translating the ship's database. The records went back over 50,000 years, documenting the rise and fall of dozens of galactic civilizations. According to the files, Humans weren't native to Earth at all. They were descendants of an ancient spacefaring species that had seeded worlds across the galaxy before mysteriously vanishing. "We're not the first," Kim said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There have been other human civilizations, other attempts to establish ourselves among the stars. And every time, something has destroyed us before we could reach our potential." Elena studied the holographic displays showing the cyclical rise and fall of human societies. "What destroys us? War, disease, natural disasters." Kim's expression was grim. "According to these records, it's always the same thing. When humans reach a certain level of technological and social development, they develop the ability to interface directly with ancient technologies like this ship, technologies that can reshape reality itself. And every time, the existing galactic powers unite to eliminate the threat." The implications were staggering. The Council hadn't targeted humanity because they were violent or unpredictable. They had acted to prevent humans from accessing their birthright, a technological heritage that could transform the galaxy. Morrison, who had barely left the command chair since discovering the ship, suddenly looked up with excitement. "Elena, I'm picking up signals from other ships like this one. Dozens of them, all across the galaxy. They'd been waiting, dormant, for humans to find them." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "How many?" "At least 40 that I can detect. Maybe more. And Elena, there's something else. Each ship is positioned near a major council world or military installation. It's like they were placed there deliberately." Dr. Chen, who had been analyzing the ship's technical specifications, added another piece to the puzzle. "Captain, the power source for this vessel appears to be some form of zero-point energy extraction. Theoretically unlimited power, completely clean, and impossible to detect using current Council technology. If we could replicate this system..." Elena didn't need him to finish. Unlimited power meant unlimited possibilities. It meant the Ghost Network could stop hiding and start building. It meant humanity could finally stand as equals in the galaxy. But first, they had to survive what was coming. Elena's intelligence network had been reporting increased Council military activity for weeks. Fleets were being positioned around human population centers. Search patterns had intensified. The Council was preparing for something big. The answer came in the form of an intercepted communication between two Council admirals. Dr. Kim's face was pale as she played the recording for Elena's inner circle. "Phase 1 is complete," said the first voice, belonging to Admiral Korthax of the Hegemony Fleet. "All known human concentrations have been identified and marked for elimination." "Good," replied the second voice. "Phase 2 will commence in 72 hours. The purge fleets are in position. This time, we'll make certain no human survives to threaten galactic stability." Elena looked around at her team. In 72 hours, every human survivor in the galaxy would be hunted down and killed. Unless they acted first. "Jake, how long would it take to wake up those other ships?" Morrison consulted his displays. "If I broadcast the activation sequence from here, maybe 6 hours for them all to come online. But Elena, we don't know what they're capable of. We could be unleashing something we can't control." "We're already facing extinction," Elena replied. "I'll take unknown consequences over certain death." The decision made, Elena's team worked feverishly to prepare for what they were calling the awakening. Morrison and Chen modified the Ancestral's communication systems to broadcast the activation codes. Dr. Kim coordinated with Ghost Network cells across the galaxy, warning them of the coming purge and instructing them to seek out the ancient ships. Elena herself prepared a message that would be broadcast on every frequency in the galaxy the moment the ships came online. This wouldn't be a hidden transmission or a coded signal. This would be humanity's declaration of independence, delivered with the power to back it up. When the moment came, 43 ancient vessels across the galaxy responded to Morrison's signal. Ships that had slept for millennia awakened to find human hands at their controls. Technologies beyond the Council's understanding came online. And suddenly, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted. Elena's broadcast reached every world, every ship, every station in Council space. Her image appeared on screens across hundreds of systems as she spoke from the bridge of the ancestral. "People of the galaxy," she began, her voice steady and strong. "I am Elena Vasquez, speaking for the human species that you were told no longer exists. We stand before you today, not as refugees or terrorists, but as the inheritors of a legacy older than your oldest civilizations." Behind her, the ship's displays showed the awakening fleet, 43 vessels of impossible design moving to positions around major Council worlds. "For too long, we have been hunted, persecuted, and driven to the edge of extinction by those who fear what we might become. Today that ends. We do not seek conquest or revenge. We seek only the right to exist, to grow, and to take our place among the stars that have always been our home." Across the galaxy, Council fleets scrambled to respond to the appearance of the ancient ships, but their weapons couldn't penetrate the vessel's shields. Their sensors couldn't track ships that existed partially outside normal space. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced technology they couldn't understand or counter. To the members of the Galactic Council, Elena continued, "We offer you a choice. End your persecution of humanity, acknowledge our right to exist, and we will share the knowledge we have rediscovered. Continue your campaign of genocide, and you will face consequences you cannot imagine." The response from the Council was swift and predictable. Their spokesperson, the same Zephyrian who had announced humanity's extinction, appeared on official channels within hours. "The Galactic Council does not negotiate with terrorists or extinct species," he declared. "These illegal occupations of Council space will be met with appropriate force." But Elena was ready for this response. From the Ancestral's command center, she sent a simple demonstration to the Council's central data hub on Nexus Prime. A brief pulse of energy that passed through all of their shields and defensive systems to deliver a single message directly to their main computer. "We could have destroyed this facility. We chose not to. The choice for what happens next is yours." Within days, cracks began to appear in the Council's unity. Species that had always been marginalized began to question the official narrative about humanity's danger to galactic civilization. Worlds that had suffered under Council authority started to wonder if these mysterious humans might be potential allies. Elena watched the political upheaval from her command chair, feeling the weight of her species' future on her shoulders. They had awakened technologies beyond imagination and gained the power to defend themselves. But with that power came responsibility, not just to humanity, but to all the species in the galaxy seeking freedom from the Council's oppressive rule. The war wasn't over. It might never be over. But for the first time since Earth's fall, humanity had hope. They were no longer victims or refugees. They were players in the galactic game, with the power to reshape the rules. And as Elena looked out at the stars, she realized that the Council's greatest fear was coming true. Humanity hadn't just survived their attempt at genocide. They had evolved, grown stronger, and discovered their true potential. The galaxy would never be the same again. And that, Elena thought with satisfaction, was exactly what humanity had always been destined to achieve.